Seems like my big lesson for this year is that the shift from maker to business owner is really messy and basically just a lot of trial and error and a lot of mistakes. For this video, I'm going to talk specifically about my soap products and the sort of transition I've been going through, all of the different phases of trying to find the most sustainable finished product and the production process that goes along with it. And I wanted to just take you through, like, from the beginning of this business 2.5-ish years ago up until now, all of the different phases of my soap product and the production process that goes along with that, because I have no one who's like laying out these steps for me on a business level. I think there's so many videos you can find about like how to make soap or how to price your soap or some of the more basic things, but I feel like going through all of these different phases will help like demonstrate how I have to change my thought process from the person who makes them and enjoys making them and is proud of the finished product to the person who runs the business. And obviously, I think it's important to prioritize pride in the finished product. I don't want to minimize that or scale back the importance of that. But honestly, if I don't start thinking more like a business owner, I won't have a business and I'll just be making soap as a hobby. Soap was the very first product that I launched my business with. I only made soap. I think I had like 8 scents, 3 of which were seasonal, and then the other 5 were year-round ones. And I loved making soap so much. I honestly hadn't thought much about other products. I just knew that I really enjoyed making soap and I wanted to share with other people. It took me maybe a couple of months to come up with the aesthetic plan and the recipe and just the overall idea of how many soaps I was going to launch with and what different products I would offer. Once I felt pretty confident in what I was offering and the product had proven itself as something that I could sell to other people and they would come back, give me positive feedback about using the soap, all of those sort of like basic things you need to continue running a business. I had those things. And then I had my first sort of shift in thinking into, okay, how do I make more of these soaps at one time? Or like, how do I lessen the time it takes me to make a single bar of soap? I think is really what the thought process was. So the very first step is a very small one and a really simple one, but it still made a difference and I want to include it. And that was going from making a single batch of soap at a time to making double batches, which really is just doubling all the ingredients and pouring out twice as many bars of soap at one time. The big pro for this is that it takes the exact same amount of time. All you have to do is just pour more of the ingredients or scoop out more of the ingredients depending on what they are. But as long as you have the containers to mix everything in a double size, it's just as straightforward as making a single batch, but you come out the other end of it with double the bars, which was so, I remember the first time I made a double batch, how thrilling it was to know that I had 30 bars at the end of it instead of just 15. It was a really satisfying moment. The con of making double batches instead of single batches is that it is more likely that you might end up with wasted product, especially when I was still making seasonal soap bars. I'll get to that change in a little bit. But when the season was up, I sometimes had leftover bars because I preferred making double batches so that it was less time making soap. But then if I couldn't sell all of those bars of soap, I ended up with excess product, which I really didn't like. Not only do I not have a ton of space to store a bunch of extra soap, I just knew that it was cutting down on my profits. And I don't know. I obviously didn't like that. So that would be the biggest con. If you wait until there's definitely the demand before you make the transition to making double batches, then you can probably avoid that But for me, I jumped the gun a little bit. It's shocking, I know. The second big change I made, and this one was much harder because sometimes the move towards efficiency takes away some of the, just to put it simply, some of the fun of product creation. I eventually had a moment of having, like I said, excess soap. Even when I would move back down to single batches, sometimes I would have soaps that wouldn't sell, and I was left with all this excess product, and I really hated that. And it was mostly the seasonal soaps where that was a problem, because my year-round soaps, soaps have a really long shelf life. As long as the scent doesn't disappear from them, soap is good kind of forever. It doesn't really go bad as long as it's made properly. The year-round soaps, I could always sell out eventually, but my seasonal scents, I kept having leftovers, and so I made the really hard choice to stop making seasonal soap. I was definitely worried that people were going to be disappointed with that. I did get the occasional comment that, oh, it might be good, especially around the holidays, to keep those seasonal soaps around. And that's something that maybe down the road I can add back in. But at this time in my business, when I really need to simplify in order to focus on how to make this more profitable, I just sort of knew eventually that this was the right choice. And so I did eliminate seasonal soaps. It did bum me out, and I like picking seasonal soaps, but I think what helped is that now that I introduced candles into my product line, I'm still picking seasonal scents and still launching seasonal products. It's just not the soap. So it's still, that sort of helped with the disappointment a little bit, to still be able to go through that process of finding new scents and launching new scents. They just weren't going to be in soap. They would be in candles instead. The third change was another hard one, and you're definitely going to see a theme in terms of what the changes are. And people might have strong feelings about this, because I think uniformity is sometimes frustrating to people as they're shopping. With that in mind, the third change was to eliminate the swirl from the inside of the bar. So normally all of my soaps were two colors, a base color as I called them, and then a swirl color. And what that entailed during production is that once I made the base soap batter, I had to split off maybe a third of it and keep that separate so that I could introduce its own color and then color the base, pour the base in the mold, pour the swirl on top, and then sort of swirl it through with it's like a spoon. And I do love the way that look, and I got really positive feedback, and people were curious about how do you make that happen? And there's so many beautiful soap designs out in the world. You can find people who, honestly, I don't even understand how they make some of these designs. They're so impressive. But it was, especially as batches got larger, it was harder. Sometimes I felt that the different batters would solidify at different times, or their trace would be different, and then mixing them together was a little bit tricky. And it was just the sort of thing where it was, once again, tough, because I felt so attached to my initial soap bars, it does become sort of a nostalgic thing, that this is what you started the business with. This is what initially brought people to me, and there's always fears that people are gonna maybe stop buying as much. But I reworked the design of the soaps, eliminated the swirl, and production is much easier to just have the whole batter get colored with whatever clay or turmeric or whatever the item is that colors my soap. I just do that, I pour it, and then that's that. It was another one that I was nervous about, but I still think the soaps are so beautiful. I just love a bar of handmade soap, and even without the swirl, I still really like the way that it looks. So the pro for that change was absolutely that it simplified the production process, and the con was that I feared that I was losing a little bit of my signature look, but ultimately I do really love the way the soaps look. So that one was kind of easy to get past. My fourth change up was a really big one, and I struggled with this idea for a while, and that was to consider outsourcing production entirely. I started thinking about this around the same time that I was hiring an assistant to help me with production of everything. Soap is so different from my other products because of the lye factor of it. The fact that soaps require sodium hydroxide or lye, whatever you want to call it, in order to make soap is just really stressful as a manager of someone else. When I'm making it myself, I've done it so much now that it does not stress me out. I'm still very careful. The idea that someone that I'm responsible for would be putting themselves in that situation just made me really nervous as a business owner altogether. I obviously don't want anyone to get hurt, but also if someone got hurt under my watch, potentially that could be the end of the business. And I was just very stressed out about that idea. So then I started looking into what would it be like to have someone else make the soap entirely. And a post from Modern Soap Making, which is an account on Instagram. It's run by Kenna, who has been making soap for a very long time. She really knows her stuff. She's just like incredibly knowledgeable about soap and the process of making soap. And I reached out to her and just started a conversation about what would this look like, if this is something you're considering, reach out to her first. I felt like she was so great to work with. I did a test run of lavender soap and tea tree eucalyptus and mint because those are my two most popular scents. You have to buy 120 bars of each scent. At least that was the minimum when I reached out to her. And for me, someone who's usually making like 30 bars at a time, it was a big commitment. And I only wanted to pay for 2 cents until I knew if this was going to be the right fit for me. So if I could make the margins work, I would still be doing this, because the pro of this option was that it's still handmade soap and it's being made in the USA. The bars came out so great, and it was so nice to just have them show up at my doorstep and be made and ready for labels, but still be like my soaps. But unfortunately, the con is just that the price point I have for my soaps, I cannot make these margins work. If I were only someone who sold direct to customer, I think it would work because there's enough margin there. But so much of my business recently has been wholesale, and the wholesale margin on outsourced soap is like, it's close to nothing. It's very, very small. And I just couldn't justify it, at least not at this point in my business. Perhaps if I grow enough that this is a larger operation and I'm selling, hundreds or even thousands of bars a month, that's definitely something I'll have to look into. But for right now, my needs cannot justify the cost of outsourcing the soap. But again, it has nothing to do with the service that I received from Kenna and the Modern Soap Making team. I cannot recommend them enough if this is something you're interested in. If you have a store and you want a private label soap, you don't want to make it yourself, and you're selling directly to your customers, 100% recommend. I just couldn't make it work, and it was kind of heartbreaking to realize, but it's just another way that I have to be a business owner first and a maker second. And that's what leads me to where I'm at right now, which is having to make a decision for the future. And I believe that decision is probably going to be that I have to remove the top sort of swoop from my soap bars. And this is another, I know I sort of alluded to this before, that shift towards a kind of uniform soap bar that doesn't maybe have distinctive features or are easy to differentiate from other people. It does make me nervous. I'm not sure how it's going to go. I do believe that my outer packaging is so beautiful and unique, and I put a lot of effort into that. And I believe it's a selling point for store owners who buy wholesale from me, but also people who are buying directly from me to gift this to other people. I think it's eventually going to be worth it. I definitely have some nerves about if it's going to be the right choice overall. It wouldn't be that hard to shift back from it. I I want to figure out the best way to do this process and to make soaps that fulfill my requirements for being a beautiful, high quality bar of soap, but are also something that don't weigh down my production abilities and just create a bit of a burden with, I don't know, how to make the most of this situation. So removing that swirl allows me as the maker, because I still don't want to put this on an employee yet, so I'll still be making all of the soap. And what this does is that it allows me to pour the batter into my soap molds, put them on a curing rack, and just leave them there until they're ready to be cut, instead of the sort of very finicky process of waiting until the soap is just the right amount of solid and liquid to make the scoop. You would think that it would be something I could time out, but every batch is different. It depends on the weather outside, the season, the humidity. All of those things are a factor, and I would much rather just pour it, make sure it's even on the top, and set it aside and wait until it's ready to cut. I just think it's something that's going to allow me to be more efficient and make the soaps more quickly. And then, I don't know, I'm hoping it is the right choice and that I don't regret it. But that's sort of the next step. It's all about, I have to keep figuring out how I navigate the emotional attachment I have to all of my products versus a more just sort of like practical and at times even like cutthroat approach that you have to have when you're trying to make a profitable business. I want to make sure that I am as recession-proof as possible, whether or not that's actually where we're headed. And these are the things that I can't be too precious about, because ultimately the goal is to keep the business running, and I want to be able to do that. And if it takes certain steps to allow that to happen, I just have to be able to make those decisions and not look back. Just hope for the best and keep adjusting based on what the market tells me it wants. And it's not always fun. Sometimes it is kind of tough, but that's I think why I wanted to make this video, because I feel like I cannot just like paint a rosy picture about, you know, being in a kitchen and just like making soaps. I've had so many people say to me when they find out what I do, they really romanticize the experience. And listen, I do love my job and I have so much fun making these products and running this business. It is overall the most fun job I've ever had, but it is not all romantic. There is a lot of it that is like stress and anxiety and the unknown and figuring out stuff that you were never educated on, and you just have to like try and experiment with and hope that you don't mess everything up, which is I don't do the best with that. So that's hopefully what came across here. I'm still very optimistic, and I am so grateful for everyone who supports my business, even if it's not financially. Just watching this video helps support my business, so thank you. That's just sort of what I wanted to say. I hope that it was helpful. I would love to answer any questions you guys have about making these changes or how I came to these decisions. Feel free to comment below. I love reading your comments, and I try to answer them in a timely manner. I usually don't, but the thought is there, and I hear that it's the thought that counts, so I'll just say that. But thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you in the next video.